Yes, I'm here to get into a few of my all-time favorite films, which is The Gifted, Piglet Rising, and The Gifted Original Sin. And I just looking at all these together because this all charts the year of 2024 of ultimate progression for director August Aguilar. And this really all portrays something of a very original force, which I just like to kind of look at individually, of like what happened this year that should take so strongly in perspective. And it all starts with The Gifted, which starts off history with just a really wonderful kind of moment of scenario, which is very atmospheric. And I feel like every time I watch it, it always takes me to a place that reminds me of a lot of like, alternative rock influence, kind of living in the whole progression of all of this. It's as if he, Aguilar, perfectly translates this to cinema, and it's so very Paul Thomas Anderson kind of way. It's very dreamy, ultimately, very haunting, spooky. It feels like there's like a foreboding intensity about it, but it's like kind of that beautiful, but it feels like something warped is really around all of it as well. And it just provokes this ultimate mood. Of just melancholic display. And I absolutely love Ginger Lynn Allen's character all throughout as she's with Jennifer Pearl. And they're just going to the church to visit Joe Casterline. And this really mesmerizing, slow-paced depiction. Like they're just like meeting the chauffeur of this, and then they're just kind of around the cemetery, and just plenty of wonderful dialogue that just gives plenty of attention to detail around the nature of these characters and their interactions. It's like all these moments just really kind of build up as just really get to know the characters on a very close and fundamental sort of level, a loose kind of atmosphere. I think that tone, it kind of sits in that holy trinity of just perfect balance, which is just, it's all about world building, character dynamics, and how the soundtrack elevates everything. And Aguilar certainly loves to incorporate a lot of like great music and tone around all of this to certainly match the mood piece, which is just a sense of intense isolation. And all this is just, yeah, it's a wonderfully atmospheric moment. And then also just like one of my all-time favorite scenes is just near the end, after kind of going through the middle sequence, like back on, and just look at all the Allen arc, and it's just there's this big assassination attempt where Ray Bolden kind of came in, but it's like the way it's paced, it's like minutes of a montage sequence just kind of building up to that, and I love how wonderfully that's paced. And Ray Bolden kind of gives this wonderful sort of hippie influence in this project. As his character reminds me strongly of Jonathan Banks in Breaking Bad. He hits that level of charisma in his performance. You just absolutely love him all throughout his interactions with Lynn. Alan, it all really holds up from start to finish. Joe Casterline just absolutely gives a mesmerizing, groundbreaking sort of performance as a priest, a very dark, like priest figure and satanic priest figure, and there's just like this insane eyes he has about himself. I just the way he holds himself away, like it gives me a lot of influence, like Daniel Day-Lewis and There Be Blood's demeanor, like at the end, especially where he's like a full-on psychopath. I absolutely love how all this is displayed from start to finish. The clown sequence is just downright terrifying. Getting into like the house sequence in the middle of all of this, it's very dreamy and very surrealist how it's all depicted. I think this is the birth of Aguilar's like original way of depicting surrealism. And it's like this house sequence just is basically just this party sequence, which just again also reminds me a lot of the Boogie Nights influence of like the pool sequences where you're just getting close up to many different characters, and there's a lot of montage sequences, not much dialogue. It's just kind of feeling out the moment. It's just a wonderful aesthetic value about it all throughout. I mean, the character dynamics really build up a strong sense of suspense value around this clown that's very offbeat in a lot of ways. And the soundtrack is just wonderfully trance-inducing throughout all of this. It's just a great extended montage sequence. And again, I strongly see a lot of Boogie Nights and There Be Blood influence in this. In the master, it's building up. There's just big-time P.T. Anderson influence in all this, and a very subtle sense of looming tension gradually evolves in all this. It's beautiful, but something feels very off, and it kind of reveals itself to be true in time. I think that's what I love about the Aguilar way. It's like it starts off like it's subtle, but then it's like, oh, there's like a truth about the haunting essence that's very genuine, and hints on a lifelong kind of foundation. The balcony shots, especially, just some of my all-time favorites as they're in the party. I like going inside, like the dynamic between like Mary Ann Fisher and all that, and just how that unfolds. But this scenes on the balcony are some of my absolute favorites. Those shots just genuinely straight remind me of a lot of the scenes in The Master just before Philip Seymour Hoffman and Joaquin Phoenix are arrested. It's like he captures that same sort of tone in its own kind of way as characters are hanging out, as it ultimately escalates into a complete sense of tension. And it seems like Fisher wants to get out of the party sequence all this is going on, and it all escalates into just a sense of complete madness. It just really unfolds a sense of just horrifying, violent madness. And the entire sequence kind of faces out as something that starts off laid back, but it ultimately ends up in ultimate madness. And this entire ending sequence reveals itself as very timelessly haunting, with just all the insane red color schemes, which again reminds me a lot of There Be Blood, and how harshly different the color schemes is here in this section than it is anywhere else. And it just displays all kinds of disturbing, terrifying imagery around what just holds up as completely gloomy and it's such a doomed sort of environment. As the final moments of Casterline just has this ultimate showdown spirit of atmosphere. And yeah, all this is just magnificent, start to finish. And